get the read on all of this from Independent Women's Forum's Patrice Lee-Onwuka and Axios' Caitlin Owens. Caitlin, what he's saying is our Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, is right. It's going to be a knife fight for control of the Senate. It's going to be a battle for the House. It's on. We know it. So he's acknowledging the obvious here, but thinks Republicans will come out okay. What do you think?
He makes a great point. Republicans are at this point where they just can't be complacent. You know, I think the narrative has been for the past year and a half that Democrats have this terrible Senate map in 2018. It's a bunch of Democrats running in states where Trump won versus states where Clinton won. But these races are tighter than anyone would have expected at this point a year and a half ago. You know, there's a bunch of toss-up races in states like West Virginia, Tennessee, Missouri. And so, you know, I think while it sounds like Senator Grassley's pretty optimistic that Republicans will keep the Senate, they don't have the room to just kind of relax and cruise to a victory.
You know, then, Patrice, in the middle of this, we got this Wall Street Journal report that the administration sent out an overture to China. Let's get these talks back on. I believe that's the first time we've initiated such a thing. What are we to make of that?
Well, I think the administration recognizes that, you know, good relationships with China in terms of trade and just in general is going to be important for not just foreign policy, but just for a strong growing economy going forward. I mean, I think everybody's on their tippy toes wondering what's going to go on with trade and with these tariffs, particularly with China. What's interesting is I think there was a big national coalition of manufacturers nationwide who came out against the administration, or at least pushing hard, saying, hey, this is how these tariffs are hurting small businesses, manufacturers across the country. So I think the administration is probably taking a hint from, you know, these small businesses nationwide and manufacturers and thinking, how do we continue to ensure that our relationship with China is going to be preserved?
It would read to me, Caitlin, worry on the part of the administration, or at least some pressure from those business groups you alluded to earlier, you both alluded to, and that they don't want it to screw up the midterms.
Look, these tariffs, the point of the tariffs is to get some of these other countries to concede to make a deal, right? Tariffs are not a long-term solution, and I think the administration knows that. You know, as long as this kind of stalemate with countries like Canada and China keeps going, there are lots of people in Trump country and places where Republicans are trying to win or hold seats that are having significant economic ramifications from the tariffs that are not good. Yeah, so there's definitely a political risk for letting this trade war play out indefinitely.
Patrice, is it your sense that if the president gets his way with the Supreme Court pick, that Brett Kavanaugh does get voted out of committee? It might be just a long party line vote, 11-10, whatever it is, but he gets a full Senate confirmation, might be close, but he gets it. Is that helpful in the midterms? Is that another successful judge appointment on the part of this president after Gorsuch? And it shows that he can get, you know, stuff like that done.
Well, when we look back at 2016, something like 30% of Trump supporters supported him because of his ability to nominate and get a Supreme Court justice that's going to be a constitutionalist who's going to be faithful to the Constitution. So I think this is going to be certainly a rallying point for conservatives, even those who are never Trumpers, but people who recognize that this administration is, you know, trying to live up to some of these ideals and opportunities to ensure that the Supreme Court is going to be held and that we have the right justices in the right seats.
I don't know if a court pick moves the needle. I guess if it went down in flames, it might. But assuming this one doesn't, Caitlin, is it a non-event, or how do you see it?
I think that's something I found remarkable about this is Supreme Court justices are typically not super controversial. You know, there's been a few instances historically where there have been controversial picks. I mean, for sure, in 2016, as you mentioned, holding Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's decision to hold that Supreme Court seat opened for a potential Republican nominee, that was very controversial. It also made a huge impact on the election. But with Brett Kavanaugh's nomination, the public's really divided on whether or not he should be appointed to this seat, about whether the Senate should vote him in. And so, you know, I think that it's just another kind of strike at that narrative of the country's really divided right now on these issues, and the left and Democrats are really angry about what President Trump is doing, and that could cause them to turn out in huge numbers.
All right, we'll see. We've got 55 days to settle this once and for all. Ladies, thank you both.